Channels. How many of you have heard the term RGB? What does it mean? What are channels? What are they, though? Red, blue, or green. Those are channels. CMYK is a printing color space. C, cyan, M, magenta, Y, yellow, K, black. Each of those is an individual channel. The easiest way to work with anything in Photoshop is an RGB. And we can get into a color space. You're actually getting a call right now if you want on your phone. But it's being recorded up here. You don't need that thing. But channels are going to be very useful at some point in time very soon to you all. We're not going to get into it because we can get into it pretty deep, but we're not going to today. Paths can be vector. Vector in Photoshop. Mind blown. Yes? It will support it. You can have a layer that is a vector mask. Basically, it's an infinitely scalable vector mask that will, or vector objects or vector shapes. I mean, there's a lot you can do with it, but you use the pen tool and paths to make that happen. Up at the top here, you have some standard stuff. You have preset tools. Auto select is probably the most useful thing that you will never know about. If you have multiple layers and you see them with transparencies sitting on top of another, if you want to just click on something and move it without having to grab the layer, check auto select. It's very handy. Transform controls, you probably don't care about that. I'll get something up here in a second. And all this stuff at the top here, this is all alignment. So if you have two layers, two objects, and you want to make sure that they're, centered, you want to make sure that they're aligned to the right, to the left, distributed distance, blah, blah, blah. You can do that with these buttons. And there are some 3D controls that you can use as well if you are working with 3D objects. Photoshop will support 3D objects. It's kind of awesome. You can edit video in Photoshop. Did you know that? Did you care?
Yes.
Kind of, maybe, somewhere in between. It's limited, but you can. You can also animate in Photoshop. You can't export a SWF or anything like that. You can't export HTML5, but you can animate. You can export a GIF, funny cat pictures, things like that. Up at the top here, if you click on the menus, you see lots of other stuff. Most of it being grayed out right now. Mode, adjustment, blah, blah, blah. What you don't see available means you can't use it, which also means you can't do anything with it because we don't have anything open. So let's go ahead and grab a file and then open it up. If you go to week 1, under in-class lab selections, there's a little JPEG right there that you should be able to click on and download. If it opens up in your browser like this, if you're on a Windows machine, the easiest way to save an image straight to your desktop, you click, hold, drag. There's a little corner down here. If you mouse over that, it'll take you to the desktop. And then while you're holding, just drag it up here, and then it'll copy that file from the browser to wherever. It's a really easy way to grab images offline. Once you have it there, go ahead and open it up in Photoshop. Either by clicking and dragging down to the icon, and then wait for the window to open up, and then let go. Or double click it and then tell it to, hopefully it'll open Photoshop. It might open in preview. Yeah, give me a second. Or you just go back to this little spot, and then you get a little circle around the icon that says, I am going to close this selection. Functionally identical to the marquee tool, the other ones we talked about. This guy here, magnetic lasso tool. If you've ever used Photoshop, you probably use this. Like from CS3 on, it's been a part of it. You click once, and what it does is, I don't know if you can see that. See that line? It's sticking to the white because I started on the white. Basically what it's doing is it's looking for contrast between two colors or tones, and then it makes a selection for you. It's not bad. Not a bad option to use. Not great, because you can see if you accidentally goof and go around a little bit, it doesn't know what to think. It's kind of a smart tool, and I say kind of because kind of a smart tool. Not very smart. We've already covered the quick selection tool. Basically, it's the same thing as the lasso tool, except you don't have to draw around everything. It's a brush. You paint in where you want to select, and it gets it for you. If you want to change the brush size, does anybody know how to do that without going up to this menu? Brackets. Thank you. Do you know how to change the hardness? Guess. It has something to do with brackets. You got it. That is exactly it. Shift brackets, and I can tell you, for a long time, I did not know that. Because nobody told it to me, and I didn't go bothering to look through the actual keyboard shortcuts to see it. Let me show you the difference between a hard brush and a soft brush. A hard brush looks like that. A soft brush looks like that. You can set the brush hardness under the toolbar up at the top, along with the size and the shape. There's a whole bunch of patterns and other jazz you can do with brushes, but we won't touch on that right now. I just want circles. Spot. See spot. Yes, thank you. Boop. It's a billiard ball. Woo! Isn't that strange? Does that appear to have depth? Why is that? Somewhere between a gradient and contrast is the right answer. We're used to perceiving objects in 3 dimensions, and that has a little bit of a shine that it appears to be 3-dimensional, even though it's obviously not. Anytime you add a gradient into something, it tends to give it depth. What you're seeing is depth added to that little circle, the black dot. Adjusting the position of that and the depth, now it looks like a globe. Basically, when you see that, you're seeing lighting. That's it. Lighting, positioning, things like that. I hit it over here. You know, it's the light source would be behind it if you didn't see the actual blob over there, so on and so forth. So, I don't know. If you're ever really lazy and you want to like do something like that, make a circle, make a oval, make something look like it's got depth, give it a gradient. Radial gradient if it's a circular object, linear gradient if it's a blocky object. Just a tangent there. But remember, the important thing to take away is brackets for brush size, and then shift brackets for hardness. And if you're doing it, you will see it increase or decrease. If you have a difficult selection and you want to make a nice soft edge, use a soft brush. If you want to make a change, you want to paint it in somewhere, use a soft brush. If you're going for a hard edge, use a hard brush. There's nothing worse than seeing stuff that's photoshopped together that is supposed to have a hard edge and has a soft edge. Somebody's face with a transition into a background. You don't want to see the background through somebody's face, you want to see their face. Make sense? I will ominously say, you will get practice, and such. Because practice makes perfect, and it's the only way to learn. Magic wand tool. Anybody know what that does? It's basically the same as the quick select tool, with the exception that you can set the tolerance. You can say, I have a tolerance of 10. A lower number is more precise. If I have a tolerance of 10 and I click here, it's only going to grab colors that are similar to that weight. If I hold down Shift, I can add to that selection. But you can see it's only grabbing teeny tiny little portions, not everything. If I set the tolerance to, I don't know, 50, try that again. It grabs everything. Almost everything. Close to everything. It still misses some of the darker spots. If I set the tolerance to then, I don't know, like 100, it grabs more of everything. And doesn't do a terrible job, but it does miss this paw. You see that? Is that a stretch or a question?
Oh, stretch.
Stretchin'. Awesome. Yeah. I don't know. I can go in depth in all these tools. You want me to just tell you what they are, or do you want me to go and show you what they do? All right. So quick select is for good, clean, contrasted images. Magic wand, not so much.
I'm wondering why my list doesn't look like yours. I don't have that selection.
Right click it. It's under. Oh, stop. Right here, click on that. The one with the brush and the circle. Adobe likes to hide all of their tools underneath other tools. And it's especially bad in Flash because you can't right click it. You have to like option click and then cycle through it. It's really a pain. Hopefully none of you have to learn Flash. Is it on the docket for anyone? Do you know? Yeah? Awesome. Woo! Nonlinear animation. Yeah! It's not that bad. Anyway, this thing looks like two cross thingamajigs, measuring tools. It is the crop tool. If you select that, you get handles. You can adjust the window, rotate, twist, do whatever you want. If I say okie dokie, it crops that image to that size. What's really handy about the crop tool, you can plug in dimensions here. 4 IN for inches, 5 IN for inches. It will crop and size it for me. And then you know it fits the output print. It's handy. You can also set a DPI in there too, but you have to go down to size and resolution. If you're rocking CS5 or CS4, there's a resolution box that sits right here. For some reason, they hid it behind a menu in CS6. I don't know why. But if you want it at 4x5 at 200 DPI, you can do that. Boom. And it automatically upsamples when I crop it. So it's pretty handy. Let's see, what else we got? Perspective crop tool, yes.
You mean it upsamples when you crop it? That means it kept the same resolution?
Nope, it added pixels in. When I say upsample, it's adding. Downsample is subtracting pixels. Resample is basically changing the size. Well, I'm not going to say that. You can change the. Remember what I showed you guys this? You can change the dimensions if you're not resampling it. So you can have a 546-inch image, but you're going to have 1 pixel per inch, roughly. If you resample it, and you take that 546-inch image and you want it 200 DPI, you now have a 41 gig file, as opposed to a 2 megabyte file. It's a big difference. If I say okay to that, I'm going to kill the machine. Aww. See what it does.